European allies have unveiled a $35 billion military aid package for Ukraine, set to fund drones and long-range strike capabilities, among other things. The announcement comes as EU defense ministers gathered at NATO headquarters to discuss broader European defense strategies. I'm joined by Garvan Walshe, the CEO of Article 7 Intelligence for Democrats. Garvan, welcome. So glad to have you here with us on World News tonight. Now, let me get straight into it.
Good evening.
The UK, other European NATO allies have just earlier pledged $35 billion for military aid to Ukraine. In more detail, how exactly will this be distributed and what impact could it actually have on the battlefield?
The important thing is that Ukraine needs about 90 billion euros of support every year. Some of it to run its government, some of it's to run its military. It's a very high intensity war. They're using drones, they're using land forces, they're even using some air forces that Europe is now helping them have. And this money is absolutely crucial to ensure that Ukraine can continue to hold the line, continue to defend itself against Russia's increasingly faltering and slow advance. This is vital that this money was agreed. It was very hard fought, particularly because of the dispute over using frozen Russian assets. In fact, this is going to have to be borrowed. But, you know, Ukraine isn't really going to have to pay this back. This is just a way of keeping Ukraine in the fight and making sure that it's there to continue to protect its own security and also Europe's security, because Ukrainians are fighting and dying for the security of Europe as a whole and for the security of for the freedom of Europe and enabling us to resist Russian aggression.
Garvan, let me ask you this. I mean, Sweden also announced aid to Ukraine for the year 2026-2027. Do correct me if I'm wrong, to $8.9 million. How important is this for Ukraine's overall military support, if not more?
I mean, Sweden is basically spending as much on Ukraine as it is on its regular defense budget. It's a huge amount. Sweden sees this as a really important strategic requirement for Swedish national defense. They understand the threat Russia poses to the Nordic countries, and they're really putting huge efforts in to make sure that Ukraine has the equipment that it needs, and Sweden is doing everything it can, everything from artillery to anti-tank missiles to Gripen jets to continue to support the Ukrainian war effort. They really are putting in an awful lot of effort, and it's something that it would be excellent if other European countries followed suit.
One more country I definitely do have to ask you about, Garvan. Germany is also moving forward with its so-called Dome air defense project. What do we know about this?
Well, I mean, Germany has a whole series of programs here. They're working with the Israelis. They're working internationally to try and improve its air defense. Obviously, this is an area where Europe has been a little bit behind, and the effect of Russian strikes on Ukrainian infrastructure shows how important air defense actually is in modern warfare. And we really need to up our production, particularly of interceptor missiles. We need to develop new techniques to intercept drones. We don't want to intercept a cheap drone with a really expensive missile. The Ukrainians are even experimenting with laser weapons, and we'd like to see those kind of technologies deployed across Europe to continue to protect our skies.
You did just say deployed across Europe. Let me ask you this, Garvan. Are we seeing possibly a new trend of European countries, I mean, after a meeting that took place today, right, taking more responsibility for their own defense rather than relying primarily on U.S. leadership?
Yeah, we're seeing significant rearmament in Europe. We're seeing increased industrial capacity. We're seeing greater artillery production. We're seeing discussions about increasing manpower. Obviously, you have countries like Poland that are trying to spend 5% of GDP on defense. The Nordic countries are doing something similar. But even Germany is ramping up its production. They have borrowed huge amounts of money as part of a special fund to modernize the Bundeswehr to be able to participate in European defense obligations. This is vital. It's not just about not relying on the United States, but it's quite fair enough that we start paying for our own defense. I mean, we're a rich continent. We should be able to develop the technologies and the capacities to be able to defend ourselves from a country that has an economy the same size as the Netherlands and Belgium. You know, the Polish economy is almost half the size of Russia's now. Never mind the economy of Germany or France.
I do see you smiling, telling me that. Garvan, how do these pledges and all these projects actually affect NATO's overall deterrence posture vis-a-vis Russia? I mean, you just mentioned Russia.
I mean, the stronger the stronger European NATO is, the stronger that deterrence is. There's still a lot of work to be done, and there are important capabilities that we have to develop, including the ability to suppress enemy air defense, the ability to have conventional deep strike, and there are questions over Europe's nuclear capability as well. Are we able to deter Russia, not so much at the strategic level, because Britain and France can do that, but if it comes to the sub-strategic or tactical level, do we have the capabilities to match Russia in those areas? That's one of the most difficult and fraught questions as we rearm. We need to decide whether we want to have that nuclear capability. We need to decide who should hold it. You know, Donald Tusk a few months ago did talk about cooperating further with France on this kind of issue. These are the kinds of questions we're facing as the United States starts to draw down its support from Europe, and in the case of the Trump administration generally, act with increasing unpredictability and even threats to Greenland.
Aside from decision-making, I think time is also of essence. Garvan, how quickly can Europe deliver the air defense and long-range systems that Ukraine needs?
I mean, the most efficient thing we can do for long-range systems is to supply money to allow Ukrainian factories to operate at capacity. When it comes to air defense missiles, we are particularly short on the capability to intercept Russian ballistic missiles. There is a system called the SAMP-T built by the French that is able to do that, but it's not in large-scale production yet. It does seem to be very capable, though. We've seen the last few weeks, as US Patriot batteries have got scarce, how heavily Ukraine has been hit, and we should make sure that this doesn't happen again next winter.
And what about some key challenges that Europe is going to face in implementing all of this?
I mean, one of the key challenges is coordination, getting the money to the right place, avoiding duplication. You see disputes between France and Germany over the future combat air system. When you have 27 countries trying to cooperate rather than one organization simply telling them what to do, obviously coordination problems are going to get bigger. But, you know, we have the capability, we have the resources. What we need to do is dial down the national pride a bit and understand that it's a threat to the continent, and that one that we can meet very capably as long as we act together and react efficiently.
Thank you so much, Garvan Walshe, CEO, Article 7 Intelligence for Democrats, for being our guest here today on TVP World.
Thank you very much.
And that's all for this edition of World News Tonight here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya. Thanks for watching, and stay with us here for more news and exclusive interviews.